The biggest thing, especially recently, has been creative finance. Being able to come in and buy a place without having to have my credit ran, have the long drawn out process of working with a bank and trying to get a loan. Like this place, like nobody asked for a bank statement. On this last one, nobody ran credit. I literally just showed up to the closing table with the cash and was able to get into it.
Welcome to the Real Estate Investing School podcast. I'm your host, Joe Jensen. Today, our guest is Zeke Mangum. Zeke's a 23-year-old real estate investor, hard money lender, and the founder of Noble Marketing. He enjoys spending time with his wife and dog, golfing, and playing Sunday league soccer. Welcome to the show, Zeke.
Thanks for having me. I'm pumped to be here.
Yeah, this will be fun. Man, I mean, you're pretty young to be in the game, but it sounds like you're doing some awesome stuff. You're not just investing in real estate, but you're also doing hard money lending as well. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, that's been sweet. It's definitely a more lazy investment. I for sure think real estate's a better way to go than that. But
yeah, you get the return. You don't get all the other benefits of real estate, right? You're not getting like the tax write-offs and appreciation, but it can be a solid way to get a return. I always say the only true passive player in the game is the lenders. Here's the money and they just sit back. So it's not a bad place to be.
For sure.
That's awesome, man. So tell us your story. I mean, so 23 years old, you've got multiple deals already. 4 deals in the past 4 years?
Yep.
Which, I mean, you were a teenager when you started. Which is so awesome. So how did you get into real estate as an investment vehicle? Like, where did that first come on your radar? Did you always know, or was it like how did that begin?
Well, I remember, I think my first time I really heard anything about real estate investing, I was working with an electrician to save up for my church mission when I was in high school.
Okay.
And he was talking about this person he knew who was just a landlord. That's all they did. I was like, that's crazy. So they don't work. Like they just collect rents, and that's the thing. And I didn't understand how it worked. I didn't know how, I assumed it was like, man, so you have to have like 400K to be able to go and buy a property. Like, I don't know how I'm ever going to be able to do that.
Right.
But served a quick church mission. For me, it was pretty short. I was out for about 6 months and came home during COVID time. But like many people I'm from Utah. I got into door-to-door sales pretty quickly after that. And the guy I was working with, the guy who owned the pest control company I was working with, I lived in his house that he had. It was in Vineyard, Utah. And it was like $450 a month at the time. It's a lot more expensive now, but $450 a month at the time. And I did the math on like how many rooms was in there and everything. And he was living for free and cash flowing still like $900 a month, which I was just like, that's insane. And I was pretty hooked from there. That was the vehicle I wanted to take to try to retire eventually.
That's cool. So you were actually the one renting the room, living there, and you're like, wait a second, like, why don't I own the house and rent out the room?
Yeah, no, I thought it was awesome. And I would just ask him a ton of questions about it. He had owned a couple properties at the time. And yeah, I just very quickly wanted to get into investing after that in real estate.
That's awesome. So what did it take for you to be able to buy your first deal? What did that look like?
Yeah, so I went out, did like my first summer of door-to-door sales in 2020. I sold in Utah. It was pest control. I did a little bit of a shorter summer, but did pretty well. I was fortunate with the situation and how things went. I got pretty blessed. And that summer I ended up making around 55 grand. So I had enough to go and put a down payment on a place. Didn't really realize that like you had to have 2 years of income and 1099. Like didn't know any of that stuff. So I was fortunate to have somebody be able to co-sign with me on a property.
Cool.
And started building just like a new build. Like it was Richmond, America was the builder that I used, but kind of one of those already like pre-planned out places. And my good buddy, his dad was a real estate agent, and he talked me into start building one of those. And
cool.
So
your first deal was a build to rent.
Yep.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, kind of. It didn't work out super awesome, unfortunately, but yeah, it was supposed to be like a 6-month build. It was in Payson, Utah, and at the time they were estimating to have a 3% interest rate, which was what it was kind of at that time. The build went a year and a half over what it was supposed to. Oh, and when I finally was able to close on the property, my interest rate was like 6%. And fortunately, I pretty much sold it. I actually sold it the day I bought it. But yeah. I was able to get out of it, didn't cash flow at all. Sold it to a guy coming in from a 1031. and just he bought it in cash, and I was able to go put that money elsewhere. But yeah, that was the first deal. Learned a ton from that one.
Dude, that's interesting. Let's dive into that a little bit. So you were going to build it to rent. The numbers looked like they would cash flow at 3%, which is what you figure you'd be getting when it was done. But it went a year and a half total, a year and a half over the 6 months that was already estimated.
It went 2 years, so it was supposed to be 6 months, and it ended up going 2 years.
Geez, that is, and talk about a time of interest changing, like the biggest 2 years of interest hikes, like
Yes.
ever, like in our
It
lifetime.
was rough. It was rough driving by and being like, man, this thing needs to hurry and get done, because you just saw the interest rates creeping up.
Yeah, for years. That's crazy. So when you ended up selling it, were you able to sell it at a profit though? Because I assume it probably the value went up a lot as well as the interest rates while you were sitting those 2 years.
Kind of. So I ended up pretty much walking out of it like even after fees and everything,
Yeah.
which I was grateful to just get out of it. But it went up. I'm trying to remember. I think I was under contract on it, so I bought it at like 390, and I ended up selling it at like 415.
Right.
But yeah, they skyrocketed up to like 450 for a second, and then came back down. And yeah, I'm grateful I got out of that one, because I saw one just barely sold for like 360.
Wow.
2-3 weeks ago. So yeah, I dodged a bullet on that one, but I definitely learned you don't buy. I don't buy any properties I don't know what I'm buying. Like if there's something like that up in the air on a build or anything like that, if I don't know the final numbers, for me that experience was enough to avoid that from here on out.
Yeah, when that's the scary thing about buying, the thought of building to rent is awesome because it's like, oh, cool. Like it's a brand new build. You're not going to have any issues. Like you're not going to have like repair issues for the most part, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like, but you say when the interest rate isn't locked in, it's like that's a scary thing we've seen. And also just the time to build, like you said, it's like, is it 6 months, 12 months, a year? There's so many things that are just unsure. But when you go buy something that's sitting there, it's like you just buy it and now it's yours. You just own it. Like there's not really these unforeseen things unless it's like a rehab or a pretty old place. Then you have a lot of deferred maintenance and stuff like that you're going to have to deal with. But everything has its pros and cons. But no, I agree. I've always been interested in the build to rent scenario, but yeah, there's too many assumptions and speculations for me too. I'm like, but what if things change and it doesn't work that way?
Well, some people obviously kill it in it, and they love it, but man, the amount of stress it brought on me to be like, wait, this was supposed to be done a year ago. What's going on? Just yeah. Not all my other deals I've liked a lot more than that one for sure.
Yeah, and that's the cool thing about real estate. You can kind of pick and choose like how risk averse you want to be, how much of a sure thing you want it to be, and then just kind of build around that, and if you avoid rehabs, you avoid builds, and you just buy with locked interest rates, it's like it can be pretty, it might eliminate a lot of your options, but it can be pretty clear of what you're getting and avoid a lot of risk. I just posted on my Instagram, it was kind of like a repost. I just want to share this, see if I can pull it up here. Oh, come on. It was some quote. It was like, Monopoly shows us that if you don't take risks, then you'll be paying, rent for somebody else or something like that. And I reposted, but I scratched out if you don't take risks, and I just said you don't buy assets, then you'll end up paying rent to someone else. And I was like, I don't think real estate needs to be that risky. You know what I mean? Especially once you know what you're doing. There's a lot of ways to secure the interest rate, to secure the property, to know what it's going to be. You have it all guaranteed in your name. You have a contract that they have to sell it to you, and you could still back out. Like there's all these things you can do to make sure it's very risk adverse if you want it to be. Now you can go riskier, but you don't have to, which is super cool.
Yeah, for sure.
So what'd you do the second deal then? So your first deal was not a home run. You didn't make $100,000. You didn't make $50,000. You weren't even making the $900 a month or $200 a month, where it's like, oh, free money. A lot of times that's what gets people hooked. They're like, I didn't do anything. People are just giving me money like every month. This is so rad. You didn't get that experience. Yours was just a big, long, scary headache. So what did the second deal look like, and why did you decide to do a second deal?
So I was still super in on real estate. That didn't turn me off from it. Just like I said, kind of the more building stuff. But my second deal is still my favorite deal for sure. So I did what I knew I probably should have done the first time. I was in college at U of U, and I was just like, I should have just bought something by the college that I could live in and rent out the rooms. So there was a row of townhomes, like really, really close to U of U, just on the south side of it. And I liked them. So I went out and I actually just knocked all the townhomes. And I was just to the owners. I was like, hey, would you sell me your house? And I actually had one that I went under contract on. She ended up wanting to back out. So
Mm.
didn't buy that one. But there was one person who told me, no, we're not interested in selling at all. And then literally 2 weeks later, it was on the market. So I called the realtor and I was like, hey, like I talked to him and the realtor was a family member, and he's like, oh yeah, okay, I'll talk to him. I'm like, I just talked to him like 2 weeks ago. I'm really interested in buying their place. Like I'll go under contract today at this number. So one of them buy it had sold for 450 just before. I ended up getting that under contract at 430 and closed on it at 430. And then it was a really big townhome. There's a lot of square footage and two kind of unused spaces that already had closets, already had windows. And so I threw up two walls. That was it. It cost like $3,000 to have somebody come in and do it, and turned a 4-bed, 3-bath into a 6-bed, 3-bath. And with that, I rented each bedroom out for 600, master out for 7. I lived in the master at first. Now I rented out for 7, but I was living there in the master collecting. It was, let's see, my monthly payment was 2,200. So yeah, I was collecting $800 a month after expenses to live for free.
Nice.
And
Almost exactly what you had
yeah,
experienced on the flip side. That's so cool. You're able to duplicate it.
for sure. And now it's great. Like I rent out the master bedroom. That one cash flows like after most of my expenses around $1,200-$1,300 a month.
Jeez,
And
that's great.
the one it's connected to just sold for 530. So
Nice. That's funny. So why did they 2 weeks later they go enlisted? They just like really wanted to pay real estate agent fees, or like
I
what
have
do
no
you know the
idea.
story behind that?
No idea. All I know is she was pretty rude to me when I knocked on the door. But I'm happy that we were able to get it done because I liked that area a lot.
That's so funny. Yeah, it's like they just could have saved so much money if they just listened to you.
For
Um,
real.
but that's cool that you kind of like picked the area, you knew what you wanted, you understood it, and you just went out and started knocking doors to try to like find the deal. And even though you it probably could have found a better deal, you from that you still ended up finding on the market. But your eyes were there and you knew what you wanted, so you're able to act fast. It sounds like.
Yeah, and my buy box at the time was like I didn't care much about anything else as long as I could get a 12% cash on cash return. I watched a lot of Chandler Smith. Like that was a guy who I binged, and
Hmm.
that was what he always preached. So I was like, I'm just going to duplicate whatever he's doing from his buy box side of things, like from his returns.
That's
And
cool.
yeah, it's done a lot better than 12%. But yeah, it was nice just knowing what I wanted, where I wanted it to be, and didn't really have to think on it. Like the day it went up, I could get it under contract.
And you knew before you even got under contract that it had the space to add the extra rooms and everything. You'd seen the layouts of these homes.
Yeah, because they're all like the same thing. So I'd walked some of them before. Like I said, I was under contract on one, like
Yeah,
5 years
I want
previous.
to get to pick your brain on that. You said they wanted to back out. So why? Why? I mean, that's not really their call, right? Like if you are under contract, they kind of
For
have to
sure.
sell it to you. But what was the story there?
So yeah, it was a lady. She was probably like in her 50s. She really wanted to move. So I had it under contract, and honestly, I felt like it was a very fair, reasonable price. Like it was what CMA was pulling up, and then
Hmm.
just took out the realtor fees. So I was like,
Sure.
hey, I'll buy it basically for what you could sell it for. Took out the realtor fees, and yeah, like after we'd been under contract for like a week, she just started feeling pretty worried about it. She's like, wait, actually, I don't know if I want to move, and was getting pretty worried. And I don't know. Like for me, I knew there would be another one out there. I didn't want to try to twist anybody's arm into doing it if they didn't want to. It's just not the way I really want to do things. So
Yeah.
I knew
So
something else would pop up, and
so
I walked away.
she just got cold feet and you just let her out just to be nice.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's cool. That's nice. That's dope, dude. And then obviously it still worked out because you got a great property in there and you paid a little more and they made a little less, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
That's cool. I like that. So that's sweet. Why don't we just keep going along this story then? I like this. So the first deal, you kind of broke even. It was what it was, big headache, maybe, a learning experience. Second deal was great. You duplicated the original thing that got you excited. the rent per room, live for free, make cash flow almost to the number. You're able to duplicate that experience, which is super rad. Then what was the deal after that then?
So the deal after that was another primary. So I just house hacked into another primary down in southern Utah County, which I moved into basement apartment. So just put that in and then rent that out. But yeah, it took me a little longer to be able to qualify again because I was doing everything conventionally. I wish I would have dove more into the seller finance stuff, but so I did that one. I just saw that I liked the area. I knew I wanted to live there, and I had just been married for a little bit. A bunch of the ones on the same street were selling for like 100K more, same square
Wow.
footage, a little bit smaller lots, and the builder put it up like right when he put it up. I was confused why it was priced so low, so I hurried and drove over and looked at it. And on that one too, I got under contract on it like the same day.
Did
That
you ever find out why he priced it so low?
I honestly I don't know. I don't know why. The prices went up a little bit on the other ones that they threw up, but when I got like the appraisal back for it, it came back at I bought it for 520 and the appraisal came back at 599. So I was
That's
pretty right on it. Yeah, it's
that's
got like a
awesome.
daylight basement where it was easy to throw in an apartment. But yeah,
And this was a new
recently
build as well? Because
brand
you
new.
said the builder. Really?
Completely new. Yeah, but it was already almost done. So
Yeah.
they listed it when it was like a month out. Everything was done. So I felt a little bit less worried about pulling the trigger on that one. Didn't think I'd have the same experience as the
Yeah,
first
yeah,
one.
you weren't having it built. You were just
Yes.
buying it at the end. Very
Yeah.
big difference. Because you were able to use your one, you didn't have to get a construction loan and then get long-term financing a year and a half later. You just had the one loan and it was all secured. So
Yeah. No,
you still had all the benefit of a brand new place, which is great.
able to lock in rate like when we went under contract and like through that whole process. But yeah, like finally dove more into the creative finance stuff, and we just closed. I just closed on a deal. What was it, like 2 weeks ago in New Braunfels, Texas, and like
Okay.
this is actually the closing papers right
Oh,
here. All the
nice. You
stuff
got them right there.
papers. Yeah, but it was this was probably like my favorite deal I've done so far. We got it from a wholesaler. He brought it to us. It was we bought it at 255. It was like a kind of a tired landlord who just didn't want to deal with it anymore. She like inherited the property from her dad and
Okay.
just wanted out of it, didn't want to list it or anything. But yeah, we were looking at comps and all the comps were coming back like 330 to like 350 and got an inspection done. Everything looked good. So we bought it, only had to put 30K into it, which was nice. And right now we're in the process of wrapping it. Like we bought it seller finance and are just going to go back and sell it seller finance to somebody else.
Okay, cool. So who's we? You say like we bought it with off a wholesaler. Like we, is it? Do you have a team? Is it just you? Like who's we?
I partnered with a kid on this one. So
Cool.
yeah, we split it. I own 80%. He owns 20. He's the one who brought me the deal. Um,
Awesome.
so yeah, we're wrapping it right now. Hopefully we get what we want, but we're trying to get 340,000. And then our interest rate right now is at 3.9. And we're going to try to seller finance it at 7.5.
That's cool. So why seller finance instead of hold it long term? Will it just not cash flow without the extra seller finance incentives for the buyer, or like because you're not going to end up owning it, right? If you
Yeah.
seller finance it. So why sell it?
Just to go try to take that capital and go get a different place. It won't cash flow like within like my cash on cash return buy box and a few other things. Like it cash flows a couple $100 a month, which is cool. And I know it's going to appreciate and do all that stuff. But if I can get like I put in 30 after closing costs and everything, if I can get like 30 to 33 back in a down payment,
Yeah,
get
so you get
all my
all
money.
your capital back, and then you get cash
Yeah.
flow for
And then
however
it'll cash
long.
flow 800, like with the numbers as those, it'll cash flow $800 a month for the loan term. We sell the note for 70-80K more than we have one for. Then yeah, just go buy another place that's going to be a little bit of a better rental
That's
is the
cool.
idea. But it was so discounted and it's like a pretty new home. It's 2017. Didn't really make a lot of sense to not buy.
That's awesome. And so the note that you have on it, you said you're doing seller buyer finance or seller finance. The sellers are financing it to you. Is there a balloon on that, or how long is that for?
No, yeah, it's 25 years.
Oh, no way. That's
Yeah,
great.
I guess it's subject to. We're buying it subject to, so
Cool.
not seller finance, but yeah, bought it subject to, and then gonna go seller finance it.
Awesome. And so are you putting a balloon on the seller finance that you're doing out, or are you just going to let it roll and just make money for 25 years off this baby?
Yeah, not planning on it right now.
That's
No,
great because there's no real benefit. The money's made in the interest, right? Because if they give you cash, you're just going to pay off a loan that's not even in your name.
yeah,
That you're like you want. I have a note like that too. I don't do a lot of seller financing, but I did one, and like I hope they like I don't want them to pay it off, right? Because I'm
yeah,
making all the money off the interest. If they just cashed it out, I'm like, and it's a wrap as well. I'm paying a note on it. And so it's a similar
okay,
thing. And it's like, yeah, I don't want them to pay it off. I want them to keep paying interest. And he keeps going late. And so there's late fees, and then he'll catch up and pay it. So then I'm making late fees on it. His interest is going even higher, and his principal's going up because he's paying late, but then he ends up paying. So it's like he owes almost more on this thing than when he started years
wow,
ago. And I'm just like, yeah, just keep paying your payments, dude. Like, never pay this off. I'm making all the money off the interest rate.
yeah, especially with how low our interest rate is on the debt that we have. Yeah, we don't want to pay it off.
What's the interest rate on the subject to loan you're taking
3.9.
over? 3.9. Yeah, that's great. And then you can go around offer what someone 6% or 7, and they're stoked because they don't have to qualify for a bank, but they get the same or lower. What interest rate are you guys planning on selling it at?
We're planning on 7.5 is what we're shooting for right
Yeah.
now.
Which for someone that doesn't have a huge down payment, it doesn't qualify at a bank or something, they'll be stoked because that's what they'd be paying virtually at a bank, maybe
Yeah,
a little less. But for the right buyer, they'll be happy to do that.
yeah, not having to qualify, and then also like we're selling it just under what all the comps look like, so they should technically be walking into equity as well.
Cool. And the cool thing is, obviously, we're talking theoretical, right? Because you just closed on it. You haven't done this yet. But there's
Yeah,
enough wiggle room there that, like, if you're wrong, you could go down 1%, or if you have wiggle room there and it's still going to be profitable one way or another, which
for
is
sure.
awesome.
Well, covering our bases on it, like it will cash flow a couple $100 a month. So like the worst case scenario, we just throw a renter in there and we just let the tax benefits happen and the appreciation happen and the principal pay down happen. Especially with the note already 5 years in. Like, I mean, it's not a crazy long time, but our amortization schedule is already 5 years in, which is nice. So we're getting way more principal pay down. So yeah, worst case scenario, it's still a decent case scenario, but we would definitely love to wrap it if we can.
Yeah, which is cool. I love that. And that's deal number 4.
Yep, that's deal number 4.
That's cool. Yeah. So you're new to the game, but you're making some big moves. Super exciting. What are some of the things that really like kind of stuck out to you or blew your mind? You're like, man, like this is why real estate's so cool. Or maybe some things when you're first learning, you're like, I didn't understand this, but as soon as I did, it was like that was kind of a game changer. Because I feel like you're still young enough in it that that's probably all still fresh in your mind.
Oh, for sure. I mean, the biggest thing, especially recently, has been creative finance because I work 1099. I yeah don't have any W-2 income, and also I don't want to pay a lot in taxes. Like taxes suck, so I try to write off as much as I can, which is a big reason why I try to invest in real estate as well, so I can get all the tax benefits from it. But being able to come in and buy a place without like having to have my credit ran, have that long drawn out process of working with a bank and trying to get a loan. Like this place, like nobody asked for a bank statement. Like for on this last one, nobody ran credit. I literally just showed up to the closing table with the cash and was able to get into it. You're
Yeah.
able to move so much faster. And yeah, it's you save so much in taxes that even if you like are barely overpaying for a property or anything like that, you're still way positive compared to what you'd be paying in taxes to try to invest in as many deals as you want to.
Because you're saying the tax savings you're having is you're able to write off more as opposed to like trying to
Yeah,
show, oh, I make enough income to qualify for a loan. You're like, I don't qualify for loans because I write everything off. But that's
exactly.
saving me so much that even if I pay a little premium on a couple of creative finance deals, better than paying a ton in taxes because I didn't write as much off. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, completely.
That's awesome. I love that. And the cool thing is with like the creative finance stuff is it, like you said, it moves so much faster. There's so many less just the unknowns and headaches because you're just take the loan stays. I'm closing on a subject too this week as well. And it's just so nice because it's just like there's not this month of lenders being like, we need this, we need this, we need this, we need this. It becomes such a headache. You just close, you just give them the money and it's and because I'm not getting a loan, I do a lot of mine remote as well. It's like we don't even need a notary. We don't even need to go in and do anything. It's just like DocuSign, done. It's like it's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, no, it just makes it way nicer. Like I'm hoping to be able to close on a couple more before May. And if I was doing this conventional, there's no way, even just time wise, that would ever work.
Yeah.
So it's anybody who's in a 1099 job, if they're want to invest in real estate and they're not looking at creative finance, they're out of their mind. That's like the route they should be looking at.
Yeah, and you can do multiple things at once, right? And like what I really liked you said, you're like, oh, I didn't have the 2 years of 1099 income, so I went and got a cosigner, which is like cool. Like that's the so many times people are like, oh, I can't buy anything for the first year or 2 years, so I'm gonna wait, save up. And it's like, wait, you don't need to wait. Like get a cosigner, get creative, do seller financing, find a way, get a DSCR loan. Like there's ways to do it as opposed to sitting on the sidelines for 2 years until you get the 1099 income to show. And if someone listening is not 1099, they're W-9, but maybe they just don't have enough qualifying income. So they're waiting until they get a raise or whatever. It's like, don't wait, like get creative, find ways to make it work. And I always say like, you can do multiple, you should be doing the conventional loan and that one's going to be long and drawn out, but then also be doing the creative stuff. You can get 2 or 3 creatives done while you're trying to do that one conventional. Don't just sit on one option, do all of it.
For sure.
That's super rad, man. So what's next then? So you want to tackle a few more of these creative finance deals in the next couple months, it sounds like, before you get into your heavy selling season.
Yeah. So I've had a goal. Like it was the same guy who I lived in his place. He had owned a couple properties and then he did a lot of hard money, kind of private money lending stuff. And he had a check sitting on his like counter in the kitchen. And it was for $7,000 from a company. It was just the monthly check he got paid out for the money that he had lent them. And I was so confused what it was. I had so many questions about it. So at that point I was like 19. It was like by the time I'm like 22, I really wanted to have $100,000 a year passively. And then I thought I could just look up and kind of pick what I want to do after that. Like it's like, oh hey, that's kind of my retirement number in my head. If I can hit that, then I can just work on what I want to. So I focused a lot on like the private lending stuff. And then obviously like I've done some real estate deals, but mostly private lending. So I hit that number a couple months ago, which was awesome.
Dude, congrats.
But I'm realizing too, like I care a lot more about having that number in real estate instead of the private lending stuff. Cause pretty much at any time, companies can just give me their money back. And also I look at the property, even just that one by UVU, how much it appreciated, my returns exponentially better, not just from a cash on cash return, which it also is, but just from the appreciation, way better than any of the private lending stuff, from the tax benefits, better than the private lending stuff, from principal pay down. Like it's great too. That I definitely want to start transitioning from that into more like hard assets that are going to pay me in multiple ways. But also it's like, hey, this company's not going to go out of business. This company's not going to be like, hey, we don't want your money anymore. Here, it's all back. So yeah, I'm trying to transition to get that number from my private lending stuff just into mostly real estate stuff. And yeah, like that's my goal. That's my goal by May, is to have that done.
That's exciting. That's cool. Let's talk about the private lending, the money lending. So, because that's a little more rare, especially for someone who's like so new in the game. How did you get into that? I guess that same mentor guy was doing it, and so that's what gave you the idea. Are you lending hard money to real estate investors or businesses, or what kind of hard money are you lending, and what kind of returns are you getting on that?
Yeah, so never actually lent any hard money to real estate stuff before. It's always just been businesses. So
Okay.
that same guy allowed me to come in and do some deals with him when he was doing them and was lending some money. But yeah, the returns, it's super simple. Like, I mean, terms are different on each one, but it's usually like 10 to 15%. I usually am shooting for around 15 if I'm going to put money into something like that. And yeah, it's just they pay me monthly. I get a check every single month from it. And like when we talk about truly passive stuff, that is a lot of fun because it's not like, oh shoot, something broke. I get a
Yeah.
call from a property manager. I got to fill a
Hmm.
room thing. It's literally just in the mail. Go cash it, and it just comes every month.
Yeah, it's not only totally passive, but it's actually the return is what it is. There's no other expenses, right? Like, because you got
Yeah,
this deal, like, oh, I'll make it a 22% cash return, and then the furnace blows up, and you're like, oh, okay, I went down to a 6% return this month. It's like it's not, there's so much more money that goes into it. But with these financing lending deals, it's like you don't put any more money in. If you did, you get a return on that. Are these long term or short term loans that you're doing?
most of them that I've done have been kind of open ended. It's like, hey, you can get your money back in 90 days. Um,
Okay.
or you can hold it for as long as you want. So like a big thing with it is I wanted flexibility with it. I didn't want to tie my money up in something that wasn't a hard asset like a real estate where I know I'm going to get paid in all the other ways for years or whatever. So yeah, it's usually a 30-day thing. And if I ever need it back, I just say, hey, I need this amount back, and I get it within the 90 days.
Oh, that's cool. That's awesome. Which would be good for you transitioning out if you want. You find something you want to put it in, you request it, you can pull it out,
Yeah.
and move on with it. And that's the thing. Like, there's no right or wrong way to do this. There's syndications, there's hard money, there's a million different ways to make money with your money. But I like that you're like realizing for what your goals are, the bigger picture isn't just passivity. It's like, oh, I want all the benefits of real estate, the appreciation, the depreciation, the tax benefits, as well as the return, the cash on cash return off the cash flow. It's like you want all of it. And that's where so many people they miss the big picture of real estate. And I was there, at one point where it's like, I miss the big picture. It's not about just the cash flow. It's not about just this one piece. When most other investment tools, that's all they have is the return on the money. It's like, if you buy stock, you make return on the money. You lend money, you make return on that money. That's all there is to it.
Yeah.
But there's so much more with real estate, but it takes some foresight, right? Because it's going to take 5, 10, 15, 20 years before you really see the huge upside. Some people bought it just right time in a year or two, they're like killing it. But for the most part, especially if you buy now, I'm guessing it's going to take 5 or 10 years before you see anything cool. But the time will pass either way, and you'll be stoked that you have something that's really going up in value.
Yeah. Even if you have a deal that just like breaks even every month from a cash flow standpoint, you just hold it for 30 years. Like that's a phenomenal asset. It's all paid off, and now you're definitely cash flowing, assuming nothing goes up in 30 years, which is definitely going to.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like in every way, like I know I said earlier, like I'm trying to transition my money from the private stuff into more of the real estate, but I think whatever way you try to cut it outside of maybe a little bit of a time standpoint, like real estate makes more sense than anything that I've seen in of 5 years of doing it.
Yeah,
So
well, it's really I agree. I mean, I love it. There's a reason why it's like my huge focus. But it's like it's also so safe. Like it's there. It's not a business that can go out. It's not a stock that can just drop overnight. Like even if the technical value of the home, plummeted because of some COVID or whatever crazy thing will happen next time they manipulate our lives. Like who knows what's going to happen next? But it's like I still have a rental contract. It's still renting. You know what I mean? Like, even if
yeah,
they say the home's worth less, like, I'm still making money off of it. I don't care what you say the house is worth. As long as I'm still cash flowing, then, like, I'm still cash flowing,
for sure.
which is cool. Well, I love it, man. I want to dive into some of our content questions or our final four questions and get some of your thoughts on that. But what kind of what do you see yourself doing in the next 5 or 10 years with real estate? What would you love to look back like, oh man, this is what I've been able to check off?
Yeah. That's a good question. I mean, I definitely want to hit that number. I hope to hit it soon. And I've liked partnering on deals with people way more than I've liked doing it myself. So I'm assuming most of the deals I do from here on out will be partners. It's fun being able to bring a lot of the guys that I work with too in on deals where they only make 30, 40K, which I mean is great for a summer, like their first year. But a lot of guys go and blow that all on a car or
Yeah,
something dumb after they go out and do well. Being able to have them come in and invest some of it in it where they normally wouldn't be able to get a property is what I've had a lot of fun with.
that's cool.
So we'll do more stuff like that. And that's what I think it'll look like from here on out. My like number one deal I'm wanting to do within the next couple of years though is I really want to get like a big cabin
Mhm.
on just a lot of acreage and like try to get as close as I can to breaking even every month, but just having a place where I can go with like me and my family and like enjoy on the times it's not being used. That's like the dream purchase for sure.
That'd be cool. That's awesome, man. I like that. We'll put it out there. You know, it'll happen sooner than you realize, probably. Well, that's great, man. So if people want to follow you, if they want to reach out to you, if they want to partner with you, I don't know if they have to, work for you to be doing your partnerships, but if people did want to reach out to you, what's the best way for them to keep in touch?
You can find me on Instagram, just Zeke_Mangum. I'm not very active on there at all, but I check my DMs sometimes. So if you ever want to reach out, I'd love to meet new people and chatting, but that would be the best place to do it.
Awesome. Well, sweet, man. All right. So I'm going to go through a couple final 4 questions here. If you could send a text message out to the whole world, everybody's going to get their phone blowing up, buzzing, beeping. They have a message from Zeke. What's it going to say?
Um, Probably just try to do the right thing. Like I feel like everybody deep down knows what the right thing is and they choose not to. Just try to add more value than you take and I think everything will go a lot better. I know in my life I definitely haven't been perfect at it, but whenever I operate with other people in like business or relationships or whatever it is, I definitely try to treat them not how like only I want to be treated, but how I know they want to be treated. And yeah, you just have better relationships. Relationships are what I really think make people happy. I know they're what make me happy. So yeah, just add more value than you take.
Add more value than you take. I love it, man. Cool. All right. So, book or podcast recommendation?
Yeah. One of my favorite books I've ever read is Atomic Habits by James Clear. I don't think I've read another book that like I could implement as much stuff into it, like into my life, from a book. I feel like it's had a big uh yeah, it's just really benefited my life. I like the idea of adding friction whenever you're trying to stop a habit and getting rid of friction whenever you're trying to create one.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've uh, a big thing for me this year has just been more accountability, and sorry, a big thing this year has been more accountability and just having people make sure I hit my goals. For example, like I'm not drinking enough water, and I realized that like just recently. So I bought a smart water bottle. I don't
Nice.
know if you've seen them before, but they can like track how much you drink on your phone. And
Uh-uh.
I just gave my buddy my login to it. And whenever I don't hit my water goal, I have to Venmo him $50 for the day. So just doing things like that, like you can move so fast if you have to. You just want like the pain of not doing it to be more than the pain of doing it.
Yeah.
And like anything you want to move fast in your life, like if you do that, you'll move.
I love that. That's a great example. Atomic Habits is such a game changer book. Like you said, it's so applicable. I mean, it's a classic. It's one of those ones everybody should read every year. Um, if anybody's ever read the Compound Effect, it's kind of a similar book. I read that one before Atomic Habits, but same thing. They're just like so powerful and applicable, like you said. You're able to actually go implement things right away. I keep hearing that book brought up again. It's been a while since I've read it. I'm like, I need to go reread that one because it's money. I love that. All right, cool. What's one of the most expensive or interesting mistakes that you've made in real estate investing or
Uh,
hard money lending, if you want, if you've had any stories there?
I've been super fortunate in the hard money lending stuff. I haven't lost any money yet. I'm sure that day will come eventually. But for sure, that first deal, I mean,
Yeah.
I didn't really lose any money technically, but having money tied up into something where I couldn't really do anything else for a year and a half, 2 years, I I missed out on probably 2 or 3 deals I could have bought at like 2.5% interest rates, and That
Yeah.
would have been nice. It was an awesome lesson. I'm grateful that it happened. But yeah, that was for sure the most expensive mistake I've made, fortunately, in real estate.
Yeah,
Or
it's
yeah, just,
interesting, like you said, it's like a lot of these stories, the most expensive mistake people have made, they still like didn't lose money on or made money on, which is funny. But like I said, the opportunity cost of a year or 2 years, that there's so much that could happen during that time. So the opportunity cost really is the biggest pain a lot of us face. A lot of times I'll ask people that question if they've been doing this for 10, 15, 20 years, and it's like the biggest mistake they made was not buying more, right? And so
yeah,
it's like the opportunity cost of sitting on the side or getting tied up in things and and you can't invest, that's huge. So anybody sitting there listening, it's like that's the expensive mistake, is not buying something that doesn't work out, it's doing nothing. You know what I mean? Which is virtually what happened to you. You got stuck doing nothing, trying to do something, but that was the pain, is you weren't able to be making big moves during that time. Which is, it's always going to be better if you're taking action with real estate than sitting on the sidelines. Um, yeah, even if right away it doesn't work out, awesome. Like I kind of a side note, but I buy in like small rural areas, and I
yeah,
feel like the first deal I ever buy in these areas, like the numbers work on paper, but they're just like, it ends up just being okay, and I'm like, it's not even that good of a deal. But because I took action, I always end up finding like one or two more deals in that area. Now that I get like a handyman or a property manager or somebody in the area that knows what's going on, they're like, oh, well, here's another deal like that one, and it's like half the price of what I just paid for the same kind of home. And I'm like, geez Louise. But if I didn't take action and buy that first one, then I wouldn't be in the niche in this small town where then I could get the off market better deal. And so it's like, I almost look at that first one as like, it's not even, that one's just to get in the door, and then the next two or three deals are where I get my good deals,
for sure.
but it all
It's
comes
just
to taking action.
yeah, it's momentum. It's like if you're not moving at all, it's really hard to get moving. But if you're moving fast, it's really easy to just pivot and change the direction in which you're moving. You just got to get going.
Yeah, I love it, man. All right, what's a one word or short phrase to encapsulate why you love real estate investing?
Um, Understand it. I don't know. Like it's what I understand better than pretty much anything else. Like I don't know who I heard say this, but honestly, it might have been Dave Ramsey. Funny enough, but they were talking about how you should invest. It was probably, I actually think it was Graham Stephan. Graham Stephan was asking him, "Hey, what should I invest like my portfolio?" And he's going through like stocks, like how each of them should be portioned out. And Dave Ramsey said, like, "Well, what's your knowledge in mostly?"
Mm,
And pretty sure it was Graham who said it's like 80% real estate. He's like, "All right, well then 80% of your portfolio should be real estate." Kind of goes back to like the richest man in Babylon principle, which don't invest in things that you don't understand. Like don't give money to the blacksmith to go buy diamonds, jewels, or whatever, because you're gonna lose your money. So yeah, I like it because I think it's safe. I think it's a great investment vehicle, but it's like what I understand better than anything else, what I've had the most practice in. So like it should be the thing I focus on the most.
I love that, man. I feel the same way. I think it's a safe principle to run on, is like invest in what you understand. And if you don't understand anything, go learn enough until you do understand something so you can invest. Don't just be like, oh, well, I guess I don't know enough to invest in anything. It's like, no, go read every book, spend 6 months, read 20 books, listen to 50 podcasts, and you're going to know so much about that subject that you'll be able to confidently make moves within that space. But so many
Absolutely.
times we just digest junk for months and months and years on end, and we don't know anything. But if we sit that time, focus on one topic, it's amazing how much you can learn.
For sure. Yeah, don't get super bad shiny object syndrome. Like focus on one thing, get good at that one thing, and then you can branch out eventually. But like nobody ever crushed it trying to know 10% of 100 things.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. It's so true. It's so funny. And I feel like more and more in this day and age, it's like our attention's just pulled 1,000 different ways. And it's like the greatest strength you can have is if you can just like say focus for long enough to really learn something, it'll just pay dividends in so many aspects of your life. But we have all the opportunities at our fingertips of the world. You can literally learn anything on the internet with ChatGPT and YouTube and all these things, but it's like, who's going to take the time to actually do it? And some people are, and it's awesome. They create amazing things in their life, and some people don't. And that gap's just getting bigger and bigger the more opportunities we have. And it's interesting to see where that's all going.
For sure.
Well, sweet, man. This is great. Appreciate your time. Thanks for coming on, sharing your story about the real estate you've got into. I'm excited to get with you next year and see where you're at then and what deals you've done. So thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's always fun talking.
Absolutely. This is Joe Jensen signing off for the Real Estate Investing School podcast, reminding you that it's closer than it seems.